talk to people about my solo travels, they invariably respond the same way. They say, "That's so awesome. I wish I could do that myself." And when I ask them why they don't, they usually tell me that they're worried about safety and worried about feeling lonely. So I'd like to spend the next couple of minutes trying to alleviate those fears. When I was in college, I studied abroad in Salvador, Brazil, which is right there. During the last month of that, I did what was my first solo travel experience. I decided to do an independent study in a small town called Cachoeira, which is a couple hours away from Salvador. During that time, I learned two things. One was the meaning of the word interior, and the other was how to drive stick shift. As I was leaving to go to Cachoeira, my homestay family in Salvador kept referring to Cachoeira as the interior. I got there, I got to my hostel, a man showed up and introduced himself to me as my academic advisor. And he asked if I wanted to go with him to the interior to meet some families who were participants in the welfare program that I was studying. I of course said yes, but I was a little bit confused because I thought I already was in the interior. It turns out interior is a relative term used to describe somewhere more rural than where you live, and that no one themselves actually lives in the interior. So we drove out there, we met a bunch of families. Brazilian hospitality dictated that they each offer us something to eat and drink. I declined the drinks, my advisor did not, and that's how I learned how to drive stick shift on a dirt road. During my time in Brazil, I didn't run into any issues whatsoever with safety, but when I got back to New York City, the first weekend I was back, my watch got stolen on the subway. Now, that's not to say that New York is unsafe and Brazil is safe, but my takeaway from that is that safety isn't binary. It's not that some places are inherently safe and others are unsafe. There's lots of decisions you can make when you travel to make it less likely that you'll run into safety issues, but if we always prioritize safety over everything else, we'd never leave our houses. We take calculated risks every day, optimizing for things that we care about, and I'd encourage you to do the same with traveling alone because the reward can be immense. So hopefully I've alleviated that concern. Another trip that I took on my own was to Cuba. I'd always wanted to go. I've always been fascinated by how it's covered, or often not covered, in the press, and I've always been someone who's wanted to see things for myself and make up my own mind. Now, I don't believe in fate, but I do appreciate serendipity, and the story I'm about to tell you is definitely that. I flew to Havana out of Cancun, but I actually missed my flight, and so I had to wait another day to go. On my flight the next day, I met a Mexican woman named Marisol. We got to talking, and it turned out she was visiting some family friends of hers. A friend of hers was picking her up at the airport, and she asked me if I wanted a ride to her family friend's house, and from there I could take a much cheaper taxi to downtown. Now, these are the kinds of experiences I encourage you to embrace when you're traveling alone. We went, and I met Miriam and Mauri and Miriam, and stayed at their house. They insisted on feeding me. Dinner turned into drinks. It got pretty late, and they insisted that I spend the night, and the next night, and the next night. I spent my entire time in Cuba with Miriam and Marisol. We had endless conversations on their porch rocking chairs about how communism worked in Cuba and how capitalism permeated nearly every aspect of the economy. It was exactly the trip I wanted, but I'm skeptical that it would have played out the way that it did had I been traveling with someone else. I also experienced more warmth and connection during those 2 weeks than I had experienced in the US in a long time. So when people tell me that they're worried about feeling lonely when they travel by themselves, I chuckle because the reality is that if you do it right, you'll likely experience the exact opposite. So I encourage you to take out your bucket list, think of somewhere you've always wanted to go, and plan a trip. I can assure you it will be immensely rewarding. And if you're having trouble getting started, feel free to reach out.